Aloha and welcome, everyone. Today is May 10th, 2021. This is the workshop meeting for the Board of Water Supply. My name is Brian Andaya, Chair of the Board, and I am here in person with this unique perspective of the boardroom, sitting at the end of the table. Usually would have all the pictures over here, but interesting. I'd like to take a moment to take a roll call of the board members who are joining by WebEx. I do have an announcement regarding the next meeting, and we're going to start bringing back live board members back to the boardroom starting a May 24th meeting. But before that, I'd like to take a roll call. Please say aye when I call your name. Vice Chair Kapua-Spro.
Aye.
Board Member Nalehu Anthony.
Aye.
Board Member Jade Butai.
Aye.
Board Member Roger Babcock.
Aye.
All right, and as soon as members Soon and Sword join up, please note it for the record. If you are calling in or video conferencing in today, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If you have a question, enter a motion or want to second a motion on an item, or whatever you do, please unmute your microphone and identify yourself before continuing to speak so we can appropriately note it for the record. Some of us, I guess, sound alike. Also in the room today is Manager Ernie Lau.
Aloha.
Board Secretary Joy Cruz Achiu.
Aye.
And Information Specialist Stephen Nordstrom.
Hello.
We also have Ray Nakabayashi here at the podium, who is going to be our first presenter today. On the telephone are Jeff Lau and Jessica Wong, both from the City County Corporation Council Department.
Hey, Brian, sorry, it's Moana for Jessica today.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Moana.
No, it's okay, no worries.
We have Moana Yost here from Corporation Council. Great to have you with us again, Moana. All right.
Thank you.
Chair, Board Member Soon just joined us.
All right. Chair recognizes Board Member Ray Soon. Member Soon.
Sorry, I'm late.
Okay, no problem. We just got started. Member Soon's presence is noted for the record. I also want to remind everybody that testimony can be submitted as follows. First, written testimony can be emailed to board@hbws.org. The deadline was due by noon today. However, if you should still want to submit late testimony, you can go ahead and do that. Written testimony will be posted to the BWS website at boardofwatersupply.com. Written testimony by mail is also accepted. The address is 630 South Beretania Street, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96843. We are accepting online testimony as well. Again, it was due by noon today, but you can still go ahead and send in late testimony at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. Finally, telephone testimony will be accepted during this meeting today. Callers will be placed in a queue and brought up to testify one at a time. The number for telephone testimony is 808-748-6040. All right. Unfortunately, in-person testimony is not being accepted. Those of you who are going to be calling in You do have 2 minutes. We will remind you of the protocol when you call in. The meeting materials for today, the board packet under HRS section 92-7.5 are accessible at www.boardofwatersupply.com/boardmeetings. Persons requesting a printed copy of the materials or who need an accommodation should contact Luella Pai Kukui at 808-748-5176. Those of you who are viewing the meeting, welcome. This meeting is viewable via live streaming on the BWS website, which is www.boardofwatersupply.com, spelled out /live. All right. Again, this is the workshop meeting. And so let's go ahead and get started. We just have one item on the agenda today. That's, again, a workshop meeting for the proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 operating and capital improvement program budget. Chair recognizes Ms. Nakabayashi and Manager Lau.
Thank you, Chair. Ray, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair and members. So this is our FY22 operating budget and capital improvement program budget. I'm Raylan Nakabayashi of the Executive Support Office. So our operating budget for fiscal year 22 increases by $7.3 million or 3.5% over fiscal year 21. Our CIP or capital improvement program budget decreases by $14.3 million or 10.7% less than fiscal year 2021. The variances will be discussed on our following slides. So as I mentioned on the slide before, operating budget is increasing by $7.3 million or 3.5%. In February of this year, the board adopted our updated long-range financial plan, and the 3.5% escalation of the operating budget is consistent with this plan. The CIP budget decreases by $21.6 million or 10.7% less than fiscal year 21. In September 2020, the board adopted Resolution 915, which amended the CIP budget for fiscal year 2021 and increased the CIP budget. Sorry, is the sound?
Yeah,
I can pause.
really sorry. We have the coconut trees are being trimmed outside. And I think that's the chipping machine.
Oh, okay.
So I
I'll
think
just-
we'll have to.
Yeah,
Carol,
I'll just talk
proceed
louder.
and do the
Yeah,
best we can.
can everybody hear okay?
How's the audio? Can you hear Ray?
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so in September 2020, we did amend our CIP budget for fiscal year 21, increasing it by $31.46 million. This amendment included additional funding for our Kalawahine 180 reservoir, which was initially funded over 2 years, fiscal year 20 and 21. We were not able to award in fiscal year 20, so we moved the whole project into fiscal year 21. We also split the project into 2 separate projects, the reservoir and the pipeline. Additionally, the amendment included funding for our Lanikai Water System Improvements Project, which was originally scheduled for a future fiscal year, but was moved up into 21, and also funding for an unplanned emergency project to construct a second lab and control center at our Manana Courtyard. So consistent with our long-range financial plan, we do intend to issue revenue bonds in the second half of fiscal year 22, and our bond issuance is anticipated to be $93.4 million in fiscal 22. So presented here are fiscal year 2018 through 2022 operating and CIP budgets. As you can see, our operating budgets have consistently grown due to increases in personnel costs, material supplies and services, and additional debt service costs from our bond issuances. The CIP budgets, with the exception of fiscal year 21, which was amended as discussed, have also steadily increased as we work to achieve the Water Master Plan target of replacing 21 miles of pipeline per year. Presented on this slide are the operating fund comparisons of the fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22 budgets. Total revenues are projected to increase by 3.8 million or 1.5%, and total operating expenditures are projected to increase by 7.3 million or 3.5%. So as I mentioned previously, with the adoption of our updated long-range financial plan by the board in February, the BWS formulated its fiscal year 22 budgets consistent with this plan. So presented here are the two tables from the updated long-range financial plan regarding O&M costs and debt service. The fiscal year 22 numbers have been called out with those red boxes. This slide compares the updated long-range financial plan forecast for fiscal year 22 with the proposed fiscal year 22 budget before you now. As you can see here, the proposed budget remains 3.4 million or 1.6% below the updated long-range financial plan projection for fiscal year 22. The proposed operating budget is based on total operating fund resources of $288.6 million, and operating fund resources are made up of revenues, the beginning fund balance, and any prior year lapses and adjustments. In alignment with the long-range financial plan, the BWS has been working to maintain only enough financial reserves as required by our financial policies. This has effectively reduced carryover each year, where carryover is simply the unbudgeted and unreserved cash amount remaining at the end of each fiscal year. So the fiscal year 22 budget was created to further reduce carryover going forward. This slide illustrates our total resources versus our total expenditures, with resources again being the column on the left made up of revenue in green, fund balance, which is in orange, and red, which are the lapses and adjustments from prior years. So expenditures are represented on this chart in purple to the right of the resources column. So fiscal years 17 through 20 are represented as actual numbers for both resources and expenditures, while 21 and 22 are your budgeted numbers. So as is illustrated here, since the adoption of the current rate schedule and long-range financial plan, the BWS has continued to bring down its fund balance. This has been a concerted effort to use our unreserved cash to fund both the operating and a portion of our CIP budget, and it's allowed us to evaluate and pursue smaller incremental rate increases. So compliance with our financial policies is measured and calculated based on our annual audited financial statements. Our debt service coverage ratio shall never fall below 1.6 times. And for fiscal year 20, based off our audited financial statements, it was 4.05 times for senior debt and 3.17 times for all-in debt coverage. Also, our working capital policies state that we will have never have less than 60 days of working capital with a target of 180 days. As of the end of fiscal year 20, we had 103 days of working capital. The total operating fund budget in fiscal year 22 is $281.2 million. This is made up of $75.8 million for materials, supplies, and services, $66 million of operating funds used to fund projects in the CIP budget, $53.7 million for fixed charges, $51.5 million in personnel services, $29.6 million in debt service, and finally $4.6 million for equipment. As a note, of the $66 million of operating funds used in the CIP, approximately $15.73 million is eligible for reimbursement from the State of Hawaii Department of Health State Revolving Fund Loan Program. So this slide presents our actual operating fund expenditures from fiscal years 2018 through 2020 and the budgeted operating fund expenditures for fiscal years 21 and 22. So you will notice here that the operating funded CIP expenditures in fiscal 2018 and 19 were much more than they are now. This is reflective of a few things. So one, the size of the CIP budget and the implementation of the water master plan to get to replacing 21 miles of pipeline annually. And as you know, our long-range financial plan, which we recently approved our update, did plan the use of both bonds and operating funds to get to our water master plan goals. So for us, fiscal year 20 was the first year of issuance of bond issuance, to fund CIP. Previously in 2018 and 19, there were no bond issuances, so the CIP was wholly funded with operating fund monies. And as we continue to grow our CIP, we'll continue the mix of financing between operating and bond funds. In comparing just our operating expenditures without the operating fund amounts used in CIP, there's approximately 7.3 million or 3.5% more budgeted in fiscal year 22 than was in 21. The largest increase over fiscal year 21 is a $5.4 million increase in debt service, which corresponds with our updated long-range financial plan and the BWS's increase in pipeline miles replaced annually. And I'll go over the highlights of each category in the next slide, or next slides. So starting with salaries, there is no net increase in full-time equivalent employees at the Board of Water Supply. We did abolish 14 positions and create 8 new ones. The 6 unallocated positions will remain in our department pool of 741 FTEs to be used in reorganizations as they are finalized. There's a small increase in salaries of $424,000 or 0.8%, which is reflective of the negotiated collective bargaining salary adjustments through the end of fiscal year 2021. As of this meeting right now, though, there have been no negotiated salary adjustments for fiscal 22 and beyond yet, but I believe the collective bargaining units are in either negotiation or arbitration at this time. So we continue to hold our authorized FTE count flat at 741, and as of April 30th, we have 188 vacant positions and 7 authorized but uncreated positions. We continually evaluate organizational and technological changes to increase and optimize our organizational capacity. Additionally, we have initiated changes in recruitment and advertisement of our vacant positions by leveraging our memberships in professional organizations like AWWA and AMWA. And we have been working with marketing consultants to develop a more robust advertising plan for our positions. And we continue to work with the Department of Human Resources to expedite the hiring of licensed engineers. As far as materials, supplies, and services, there is a $3.7 million increase here, 5.2%. This is made up of multiple items. So first being professional services, we increased about 1.4 million there. There are a few projects to highlight. We are embarking on a new rate study, so we have our rate consulting. Due to federal legislation and law changes, we have funding for a lead service line inventory and water testing funded in fiscal 22. We also have additional environmental investigations, and we're funding some money for the Baratani redevelopment project. As far as road repairs, there's a $1.2 million increase over fiscal year 21. And a note on this one, so breaks on our large transmission mains, which were projected in our water master plan, do increase the need and the cost, I guess, of emergency road repairs. So that's reflected in your fiscal 22 budget. Contractual services also increased by about $535,000. One of the projects driving this was increased wireless security for our reservoirs. We also have a new budget category of PV system maintenance. So as our ESPC project reaches final acceptance and completion, the contractors turned over the repair and maintenance of the system to the Board of Water Supply. So this amount needs to be budgeted to maintain the system going forward. We also have an increase in refuse collection and disposal reflective of the increase in tipping fees. And there's a decrease, all of this offset though, by a decrease to the repair and maintenance at our recycled water plants. As far as equipment, it's down 1.9 million or 30.1%. And while the fiscal year 21 equipment budget was much higher than the proposed fiscal year 22, we did and continue to defer the purchase of new and replacement vehicles where possible and safe to do so. In fiscal year 21, we haven't and we do not plan to spend the entire budget allocated to equipment, as many of the purchases have been deferred. And the fiscal year 22 budget before you is reflective of this current plan to purchase and replace only equipment that is absolutely necessary. As far as debt service, it has been increasing steadily as we issue more bonds to cover our increased CIP budgets. While we've been issuing more debt, as reported earlier in this fiscal year, we have been able to achieve good financing rates. So I think in February, we reported after the bond sale closed, we had a AA positive from Fitch and a AAA with stable outlook from S&P. So this is the second year for us of receiving the AAA rating from S&P. And the AAA is the first rating of its kind within the state for municipal style credit. And just another note on debt service, the AAA borrower does pay about 20 basis points or 0.2% less than a AA borrower. So on a $61 million bond issuance, that's about $122,000 in annual interest savings. So fixed charges for the department have decreased by about $258,000 or 0.5%. This is due in part to a reduction in the amount budgeted for electricity costs. So as we near full completion of our ESPC, we are already realizing savings from the use of the operational PV systems. Additionally, there's been a reduction in the amount budgeted for other post-employment benefits based on the funding schedules provided by the EUTF. And these decreases, though, are being offset by an increase of $3.8 million in retirement contributions to the ERS for our employees and the employer cost of health benefits for both active employees and retirees. So total revenues are projected to increase by about 3.8 million or 1.5%. Metered water revenues are projected to slightly increase by 3.3 million or 1.4% due to the rate adjustments scheduled in fiscal year 22. On average, there will be a 6.3% increase in rates for single-family residential, 0.4% increase for multifamily residential, and 2% for non-residential, and a 6.6% increase for ag. And collectively, with these increased rates, we are forecasting an increase in revenue. Other revenues for the board are projected to increase by about 410,000 or 4.7%, and this is mainly due to an increase in interest income for us. So this chart breaks down the revenue budget of fiscal year 22 as compared to the budget in 21 and the actual revenues collected in fiscal year 20. So as noted on the previous slide, a total of 1.5% increase in fiscal 22 over 21. Okay, so presented here is a chart showing the actual fiscal year 20 revenues, the fiscal year 21 budgeted revenues, fiscal year 21 estimated revenues, and the fiscal year 21 budgeted revenues before you today. So the revenues of the BWS are almost entirely generated from the metered sales of potable, non-potable, and recycled water. And metered sales, as you know, are greatly affected by use and weather. So the latter part, just a little bit of context about the 21 estimate. So in the latter part of fiscal year 20, the April through June timeline and the early part of fiscal year 21, we did see a drop in usage, thus the drop in revenue. Revenues did pick up again in the hotter summer months. That's like the August to October timeframe, as more water was used and the island began to open up again after both COVID shutdowns. And as was forecast by the National Weather Service, Oahu did experience above average rainfall through the wet season, with above average rainfall recorded in from January through March of this year. So water usage is greatly influenced by rain. The more it rains, the less our customers tend to use water. And so we're expecting usage and thus revenues to go up again as we get into the hotter summer months, so towards the end of this fiscal year. So in summary, our operating budget we're dealing with decreased resources. So the projected carry forward or beginning fund balance of the board water supply continues to decline. And this is offset slightly by our projected increase in revenues. We are seeing increased total expenditures. So our annual operating expenditures did increase 3.5%, which aligns with our updated long-range financial plan. And we did increase over the prior year operating funded CIP. So we continue to implement the Water Master Plan's capital program, increasing the CIP budget and funding it with both bonds and cash. But these things combined do equal for us a reduced fund balance. And as we prepare to enter our next rate setting study, we have right-sized our operating and our CIP program budget to align with the long-range financial plan. Then I will take a break here for Jason to do capital.
Chair, would there be any questions?
I think we should,
Yeah.
Okay,
Before we get into the CIP?
okay.
Members, any questions for Ms. Nakabayashi?
I just have, this is Na'alehu. I just have one question on that last slide. Can you just give me some examples of what other, sorry, the last bar graph, what the other revenues are for the board?
Sure. So, sorry, let me pull out my budget book too so I can make sure so most of that is your interest income for the money we have in the bank and our investments. The rest of that though is things like ocean cooling. We have the JABSUM contract where we're running the plant over there, the AC chiller plant over there. We have revenue from water service installations and the materials and jobbing associated with that. Yeah, it's mostly the interest income, and then a little bit from, or the next biggest one would be the JABSUM revenue for ocean cooling, and then the rest of it is just that small jobbing and like fire, private fire protection.
There is some revenues from cellular companies that are located on our facilities too. That's a small amount though.
Oh,
Thank you.
Anyone else, members, any questions? If not, I've got one.
okay.
Can we go back to the slide entitled Operating Fund Resources and Expenditures?
Nope.
Yep.
This one.
Yep.
Okay.
So my question is, so the dotted line from 2020 to 2021. So where we have an ending balance actual 32.8, and then carries over to 47 million in fiscal year 2021. Can you refresh our recollection? I know, is this the one that the project was put off? It wasn't able to be encumbered in 2020, so it was transferred to 2021?
So actually, this adjustment for the beginning fund balance was done so that we could plan, I guess, better for and align our budgets more closely with how we calculate working capital. So that's accrual and cash-based accounting without getting too, I guess, far into the weeds versus fund accounting. So the 32.8 million represents operating fund balance. We adjust it based on how our long-range financial plan calculated like working capital and the basis for working capital. So it mixes the blend of like fund accounting and accrual accounting to get to the new revised starting total of 47 million for the operating fund. And that all is by design so that we can continue to keep an eye on the working capital balance and make sure we appropriate and expend money in alignment with getting to our working capital goals.
Okay, and can you remind us, can you remind us of the working capital goal? Is that tied to our financial policy?
Yep. That's our financial policy for, I think that was, oh, I'm sorry,
You have a separate slide, but it's
Yep.
60 days.
60, no less than
180
60,
days.
yeah,
Okay, so just for,
there you go.
okay,
Okay,
so,
Uh,
Member still needs to move.
uh,
want me to?
yeah, Ray, could you mute? Yeah, thank you.
okay.
Chair.
So, this 39.8 that we're expecting for the end of this fiscal year 2021, that represents this fiscal policy here, 4.3 of 103 days.
So actually, the fiscal year 20 audited financial statements are what got us to 103 days of what would be considered working capital. We haven't closed fiscal year 21, and we haven't done the financial statements for fiscal year 21. So the actual unencumbered working capital cash balance can't be calculated until the end of fiscal year 21. But what we wanted to do for budget purposes is try to work that into our planning. So finance did a revised fund balance calculation based on how the working capital would be calculated to kick off, I guess, the fiscal year 22 budget planning so that we could, 103 days is a little bit more than the 60-day minimum. So we'd like to continue spending that down so we're not holding a lot of cash, especially as we move into our next rate setting study. We want to make sure that we're aligned with our financial policies and not misaligned as we go in to study what the next incremental increase should be.
Okay,
So it's really trying to carry over a smaller amount. We know that when at the close of the fiscal year, when they actually do the calculation, we probably end up higher than 7.5 million.
Yes.
But if we keep it at 30-something million, we'll know we'll end up even higher than that and carry over a larger amount of money. So
Okay.
being very sensitive to the previous discussions with the board members of trying to put the money to work. And so we move more money over to the CIP this year to fund more operating fund CIP.
okay, yeah, that part I definitely understand. I do see definitely decreases um, from 2021 to 2022, the ending balance. And I know that these numbers are even smaller than what they were a few years ago. So definitely see that. I'm just trying to understand. So at the moment, you know, this 60 days working capital, what is that number?
Okay.
Or you can give me 103 days if you have that number.
So there was about $47 million adjusted at the end of fiscal year 20, which equated to, sorry, I gotta get my calculator out, the 103 days. So so 47 million for a little under $500,000 a day. About $460,000 a day would be considered our, I guess.
In the 28-29 million dollar range, I think, to
Okay.
constitute that.
Okay, so to meet this standard, never having less than 60 days of working capital, it would be in about the $29 million.
29 million dollar range.
Okay, and that's about 460,000 per day.
That is about there.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and the idea here is we're, rather than shooting for the 180 days at this point, we're trying to shoot for the minimum amount, 60 days of working capital.
Knowing that we're gonna probably come out.
And we're going to go into a rate study and also kind of being very cognizant of the economic conditions right now with our customers.
And in preparation for the next rate study.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, very good. So board members, this is kind of goes back to our previous discussion regarding having a huge surplus at the end of the fiscal year. The department is trying to address that, and there is actually a science, if you will, behind it, and that goes back to this financial policy that we adopted of never having less than 60 days of working capital, but actually trying to target 180 days. And for obvious reasons, in times of emergency, disaster, and whatnot. Okay, members, any further questions? Okay, if not, thank you very much for that presentation. And by the way, members, you will see this presentation, likely see a very, very similar presentation at the next board meeting, May 24,
During the public hearing,
during the public hearing.
prior to the regular meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. At this point, we'll have Jason Takaki, Chair,
Okay.
share the proposed 2022 CIP.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Takaki.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Andaya, board members. This is the FY 2022 Capital Improvement Program. The annual CIP is our commitment to the future of the water system. The annual program is compiled by the Capital Projects Division and includes projects from all divisions and staff offices. The CIP supports the department's vision and mission and is aligned with the Water Master Plan, the department's strategic plan, each division's goals and objectives in support of these plans, and the 6-year CIP. Oops. Good grief. That's my fault. Okay. CIP carefully balances the needs of the system in providing reliable water service with cost-effective management of assets and funding. CIP is comprised of 3 project categories: research and development, renewal and replacement, and capacity expansion. This matrix shows the project categories and the sources of funding. Sources include the operating fund that Raylyn just went through, funding through low-interest loans from the Department of Health State Revolving Fund, the Special Expendable Fund, which are collections of water system facility charges to fund system expansions, and improvement or bond-funded projects. The total for fiscal year 22 is shown in the bottom right-hand corner. It is just shy of $180 million at $179,976,000. As we all know, the municipal system is massive and diverse. This map illustrates the distribution of this year's design and construction projects around the island as we manage an island-wide municipal water system. These are the highlights for Category 1, Research and Development. $6.9 million is proposed for this project category. Research and Development begins with an appropriation for the drilling, casing, pumping, and testing of exploratory wells in Kunia that are funded in part by the state of Hawaii in support of diversified agriculture. We will continue our construction management program, which provides additional field expertise and training for the Capital Projects Construction Management Branch. And finally, a study will look at water system improvements required to ensure the reliability of water delivery for the adjacent Newtown Ridge and Royal Summit subdivisions. The largest category in the CIP is Category 2, and it addresses the needs of an aging infrastructure. A total of $121.5 million is allocated in this project category and includes projects to perform renovations and renewals to aging facilities. The 6 projects listed here represent a $35.5 million investment in critical facilities around the island. Category 2 also includes main replacements as we work toward a target goal of 21 miles of main replacement per year as prescribed in the Board of Water Supply Water Master Plan. Construction projects to replace 10 miles of main are included in FY '22. And this is right on our target as we steadily increase our replacement miles to 21 by the year 2027. Another 10 miles of main replacement design projects are also included in the annual budget for future construction. Our renewal and replacement needs include corrosion repairs and controls for our granular activated carbon water treatment facilities, a plan and project to address a backlog of new water service requests, and a long overdue renovation to the Board of Water Supply IT data center, which is housed in the historic Veritania Pump Building. In FY '22, we will continue upkeep of our reservoirs and other Board of Water Supply structures at facilities around the island, while also continuing to upgrade security at all BWS facilities. And finally, our third category capacity expansion includes installation of a new recycled water transmission main from the expanded Honolulu water recycling facility, installation of granular activated carbon water treatment at Mililani Wells 2, and $17 million for the initiation of a design, build, operate, maintain project delivery approach for a desalination facility at Kalailoa on 20 acres of land from the Barbers Point base closure. And those are the highlights of this year's CIP, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Members, any questions? Okay, I've got one.
Yeah.
Can we go to the slide, capital improvement program budget FY 2022?
This one?
Yep.
Okay.
I just want to get a better handle on each of these funds, the sources of revenue for our CIP budget. So operating fund on the on the left, that's obviously from our operating money.
Right. Operating revenues, that's what Raylene just covered, and there was a piece in there that went to the CIP.
Okay. All right, next one is operating fund SRF eligible. Is this the one, the loans through Department of Health?
The Department of Health, EPA, have the drinking water and clean water state revolving funds, and these are low interest loans that we use the funds from there to fund our CIP, but we need to fund our projects up front, so we use operating fund money and then get reimbursed.
The loans are, yeah, like
Oh,
Jason said, reimbursed. So we have to use our funds to pay the bill. Then we submit it for reimbursement from the state.
I see. Okay.
And that's why it's called, operating fund SRF eligible.
Okay. All right. Understood. Next one, special expendable fund.
Special expendable fund is collections from water system facilities charges. So if for a new development, say, or an increase to the needs of the water system, people will pay in water system facilities charges. Those are collected and then used for projects that contribute to the system expansions.
I see. Okay. So that's why they're all 18.9 million is under category 3 capacity expansion.
That's right.
Okay. And then improvement fund, are those the bonds?
That's bonds.
Yes.
Okay. And I note that the bonds all go to renewal and replacement, which are one of our main goals is the 21 miles of pipeline replacement per year.
True.
It's our biggest category.
Right.
Okay, and then on the expense side, construction cost index, is that?
Construction cost index is a set aside for bids that come in higher than the budgeted amount. And so this is important in times when there's fluctuation, we're not really sure how the market will be. This would cover, in this case, increases in lumber, which has been in the news.
Sure.
There's huge increases in lumber costs, And so bids will come in higher, and this makes money available for us to go above the budgeted amounts, but
Okay.
stay within the total budget.
Okay, understood. And then contract adjustment?
Contract adjustment is budgeted, funds budgeted specifically for change orders for prior year projects.
I see.
And so these are anticipated needs, and the divisions project what they'll need.
Okay, very good. I think
Can,
that's,
can I ask a question on that then?
oh, go
Chair?
ahead. Go ahead, Rick.
Jason, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that those were for change orders. That's against what size contract? I mean, what's the total of those contracts that they would yield $15.6 million in change orders?
Well, right
Do you have
now,
any idea?
right now, we have a total of, I think it's $300 million worth of work in progress. Of course, this is likely the more recent projects are just started construction. So I don't know what my guess would be on that, but I think.
So this is an estimate. This isn't.
It is an estimate. It is a large number, but at the same time, there's many unknowns related to construction projects for water, because a lot of it
Okay.
is underground and there's many unknowns.
Okay, no, I'm fine with that. That's 5%. So that's not that dramatic. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure, because I'm new to the board, I just want to make sure that I understand the perspective with respect to the improvement fund and bonds, right? So we're working our way up to 21 miles of replaced main a year. And we're using bonds to kind of flatten that price out every year that we pay as we go, so that that number is as known as possible as we make our way through that. But if you go back to the budget forecast that Ray was talking about, so basically, as that bond number starts to increase, as we start to use this next set of bonds that we just authorized, and that's where we have to look really keenly at the rate adjustment to pay for it over time. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, that's correct. Board Member Anthony, what we have is, right now, we're in the midst of the last two rate increases on a rate schedule was adopted by the board in 2018. Ray Nakabayashi mentioned that we're entering into a new rate study, which is actually in the budget for starting in FY22. That rate study is going to look for the next 5-year rate schedule that we need to be able to continue to balance, fund the CIP through cash, operating funds, and also through borrowing. So we try to spread the costs of the capital program over time. We do need to maintain these policies in terms of debt service coverage, so the rates will increase gradually to keep pace with that.
Yeah, and just to give a big picture, stepping back, when we were doing the last rate study, we knew that replacement of pipelines was our number one goal, because there's just so many breaking and it would cause such a disruption for our community, traffic and otherwise service. So we knew we wanted to hit the AWWA standards within a certain time period of 21 miles per year. But at the same time, we didn't want rate shock. We didn't want to increase rates too much, because otherwise, that would be detrimental to our ratepayers and to us. So we struck a balance of, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody is, we struck a balance between very modest increase in rates and then bonds. And fortunately, the department has maintained a very good financial record, which has resulted in very good bond ratings, which lowers our debt service costs. And then we begin the process all over again next year.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a big picture question for Ernie.
Sure.
Ernie, these are two good, I mean, I looked at the budgets, I thought they were great. I thought they were reasonable. And I really love that Jason and his group are meeting the 10 miles and continuing to step up. But is there no federal money coming back because of COVID? And if there is, where does it factor in?
So right now, that's a very good question, Ray. So right now, this proposed budget, we are anticipating maybe the opportunity to borrow low interest loans from the SRF program for about 15 million. Right now in Congress, there is a water and wastewater infrastructure bill that passed the Senate. That's over at the House. We're kind of monitoring that situation. And then the president's still pushing a larger infrastructure bill, trying to get that through Congress. So if that happens and we find ourselves with the opportunity for more funding, federal funding, perhaps through grants. Grants would be great because loans still have to be paid back. Then we may need to come back to the board at some point in the future, depending on what gets passed by Congress and signed into law by the president.
So right now, you're not assuming anything.
We're not assuming
We'll make
anything.
adjustments if something occurs.
We'll have to make adjustments if something really occurs.
Okay.
Excellent point. Thank you.
All right, members, any other questions? Okay, if not, I'd like to ask Madam Secretary, have we received any written testimony today?
No written testimony, Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Nordstrom, do we have anyone from the public testifying by telephone?
No testimony, Chair.
Thank you. All right, let the record reflect as such. Okay, well, one last chance for questions, members. If not, you'll get another opportunity at the public hearing on May 24th. We look forward to having a few of you join us, and I'll be contacting you separately on that, but joining us here in the boardroom. And I believe if there is no other further business, that brings us to the end of our workshop meeting agenda.
Yes. Yeah.
Do we need a motion to?
Yeah, you probably need a motion to adjourn.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
This is Jade, a
Thank you.
second.
Give it to
Okay,
Jade, it's
thank you.
fine.
Thank you, Member Anthony, for moving for the adjournment. And second was Member Butai. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, we stand adjourned. Nice to see you, everybody.